because the question was, are the Suns being used for leverage to get more out of Miami? And you started to hear the Suns stuff. And it's just like, what do they have to give? That's kind of the natural inclination, even though Beal has that no trade clause, right? Because they just traded all their firsts. And yeah, it's technically 2 first round swaps, but there's no, like, the 2024 first round swap is nothing. We really think the Wizards are going to have a better record than the Suns next year? Like, that's nothing. That's not a real thing. That is a symbolic swap. It is not real when we actually talk about it. And so it's just like, there's nothing there to make a deal is the first thought. And so my first inclination was, okay, maybe this is being used as leverage. Everybody and their mother has noted the connection of Mark Bartelstein being Bradley Beal's agent and his son, Josh Bartelstein, being the CEO of the Suns. And there are a lot of times where you throw this out there and Miami wasn't really wanting to part with Hero from what I had heard. And they weren't really wanting to part with that much. And maybe you get an extra pick out of Miami. Maybe you get Hero out of Miami if they're panicked and they feel like there's somebody else that can up the ante. And that was my first inclination. And so I'm looking into it, and all I'm hearing is like, no, the Suns are really interested. And the Wizard had given Beal permission to talk to other teams. And there were people there it was like a all hands effort. I think, like, there were people there just hitting him up constantly. And like, you got to come here. You got to come here. You got to come here. And I'll be honest. I've from my time covering Brad, I had always had an inside joke with him that he's the most tampered with player in the NBA, in like an NBA history, because every other player who gets tampered with a lot eventually leaves. And considering the age of like social media and texting and FaceTime and all that kind of stuff, and how players all know each other so well and are so connected, I feel like he's the most tampered with player in the league. And this must have been his most, I mean, it wasn't tampering, he had permission, but this must have been his most recruited week of his entire career. And I think the Suns made a really aggressive pursuit to show him why they wanted him, why he would fit, why they valued him. And I think it swayed him, on top of the fact that, I think the geography was something that played into account as well. And obviously a chance to win a title.
What, if anything, real briefly, Slater, sorry to jump in, do you know, again, because if we haven't made it clear, Fred covered Brad for years, has fantastic insight on this front. Off the court, Fred, there's been some reporting about, ties to the West Coast and that being a difference maker here. How did you see that component?
I think that's definitely plausible. Brad's wife is from Los Angeles, getting there closer. He lives in Los Angeles during the off season. I think that's definitely closer, but I don't think it was like deal breaker, got to go to the West Coast ever. I know Miami was a place that he always really, really liked. I know LA was a place he always somewhat considered in the past. Golden State was a place he somewhat considered in the past. Shams and you reported that Kings stuff. That was real. I don't think he was like ever like yearning to go to the Kings, but I think the Kings made calls to the Wizards. And
Sacramento's a hot market right now. It's a hot housing market right now.
Started with Slater, man. The second Slater got to town,
There you go.
Part of the wave, the Bay Area wave upstate.
I'm like I'm the Haslam. I'm the OG out here.
Yeah, I don't think he was ever like super into the Kings or anything like that, but he was like willing to listen. I think it was like he was willing to hear them out. I don't know what his reaction was upon hearing them out, but it wasn't like, no, I'm not going to Sacramento, which, by the way, what an incredible change for the Kings from like a 16-year period to turn around and be like, this is the number one guy on the trade market. Okay, I'll listen. We'll hear him out. Right. I don't think Philadelphia was ever in consideration. I know a lot of people like fake trading him there. I don't think that was ever really a real thing, at least not this time around. I don't think Boston was ever a real thing. I think the Knicks, kick stuff around internally, and in the past they had expressed that they would be interested in Beal, but I don't think anything like concrete ever amounted with the Knicks, and I don't think the Knicks were ever a team that was going to climb super high on his list or anything like that. So I mean, I think the West Coast stuff matters to a degree, but I think the Suns kind of gave him the best of both worlds. He gets a really good opportunity to win. I know he has a ton of respect for Kevin Durant. He always has. Like he he really respects the hell out of Kevin Durant, and I'm sure having an opportunity to go play with KD was a big thing for him. He just I know he marvels over Durant and his game and him as a guy too. So I think it just kind of turned into the perfect storm, and you get that no trade clause, and it's like now it's possible.